Welcome back to the MyLatinLife podcast. Since 2014, MyLatinLife has been your trusted guide to traveling and living in Latin America. And one big aspect of living in Latin America is learning the language, learning Spanish, learning Portuguese, learning French if you want to go to Quebec or French Guiana or a couple exotic islands. But anyway, so we have with us Mr. BowTiedOdin, his second appearance on the podcast. Welcome, Mr. Odin.
Thank you very much. It's great to be back. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk again. A lot has happened since the last time we spoke, and I've had some thoughts on what fluency really is since we were talking about it last.
Okay. Yeah, so do you know how many months it's been? It's been over a year since the last one.
It's been over a year. I would say it's probably closer to 14, 15 months. It's been enough time that I've had 3 or 4 cycles of students go through.
Okay, so catch us up on what's new with you I guess what, and for people who didn't hear the original episode, maybe you could catch them up on what you do.
Yeah, so I do a couple different things, and it's definitely evolved since the last time we spoke, mostly because I was being probably too rigid when I started out with this 3 months to conversational program. And I actually got that idea from our podcast because you told me about those guys that were fluent in 90 days. Mm-hmm. And I stand by fluency in 90 days, not going to happen. But you for sure can have native level conversations with native speakers in just about any country after 90 days.
So I think you're thinking of Benny Lewis, fluent in 3 months.
Fluent in 3 months, yeah.
Yeah, the guy's right. A legend.
Yeah.
I need him on the podcast if you know him.
I don't know him, but I definitely looked at a lot of his stuff when I was planning my own program.
Okay.
Because I wanted to see if it was possible. And the first time I ran through it with BowTied Scapegoat, who does the Goat Small Jams, and his wife. And they own property in Puerto Rico and Airbnb. And so additionally, one of the nice things about having private classes is a tax write-off. He could write it off on his taxes because it's furthering his business goals and it's further education. So we do our Spanish lessons for 3 months. They go down to Puerto Rico. They have family from Puerto Rico. She's Puerto Rican. And so about halfway through our class, she just starts texting her dad in Spanish every day. And that made her progress accelerate. And fortunately, he's competitive. So as much as he would tell you he's a horrible student, he's competitive with his wife. And since she was excelling, he had to excel as well. And he did. They went back, were able to speak with their family and friends for hours on end in Spanish. And that, for me, solidified that 90 days is enough time because both of them, I don't want to give away their age, but they're over 30. And they both have full-time jobs. They're both working professionals. And still they were able to pull it together. We had class at 8 p.m. for them 3 times a week. So seeing that happen was really awesome. From there, it just kind of, I don't want to say spiraled out of control because it was very much not spiraling and it very much was not out of control, but just person after person. BowTied Olive, who does the Oliva Dorado, he sources out of Spain. So he's been in Spanish classes. Him and his girlfriend did it. They went to Argentina. This is where the accent work came in because when they're going to Argentina, I had to tell them, you've been traveling in Spain a lot. You may not understand Spanish in Argentina if you don't know the accent to expect. So we spent a week listening to native Argentine speech. We spent a week practicing the accent and all of it to say, I never really tell students which accent to use, but I want them to be aware of the ones that exist. So when they hear them coming in, they know what to expect and what is happening. Mm-hmm. So they went to Argentina, had a great time, spoke Spanish, and he goes to Spain every October for the harvest. So we do an intensive month of classes before he goes to Spain every year, and that's coming up here. So it's going to be fun on that end. From there, it was just person after person going to different countries. And so I realized that 90 days, 3 months is enough time. And you can have a lot of fun in that 90 days while learning Spanish or any language, really.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So you help people, get fluent or get better in their target languages. And you do a couple different languages. You do French and Spanish and maybe others. I don't know.
I do French, Spanish, and I actually have a TOEFL program for English learners.
Okay.
So I had an English student in the Czech Republic. He was really pressed. Fortunately, his English is probably an A1 already, so we didn't have to start from scratch. But we did 30 days of classes, and he got a B2 on his TOEFL exam. So we've got English programs too that are working really effectively. And then next year, I just got back from a wedding in Germany for my really good buddy I met while as a Rotary exchange student. And I'll be adding German next year to the cycle.
Okay. And what's the most popular?
Spanish by far.
By far.
And probably because of the community. I think that our followings overlap quite a bit because a lot of people who are reaching out to me for Spanish are doing it from Canada to move down to Latin America.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So let's switch gears. I wanted to talk about the official languages of countries thing that you mentioned offline. What would be kind of a cool thing to talk about. I think this actually fits in quite well with some of our other discussions about settlement blocks and micronations and some of these things. But it's this idea that some countries have official languages, some have multiple official languages, some have no official languages. And it sounds like you've been investigating this a little bit.
Yes, actually, I'm back in, it must have been December of last year. I was pretty heavily crusading on the idea that America needs English as the official language. And a very recent thing happened that is a great example as to why that's important, where we had a truck driver who doesn't speak English kill a family of 3. If English is the official language, you have to pass an English proficiency exam to get a CDL. The chances of that drop drastically. But on a much lighter, lesser example, the U.S. spends close to $4 billion annually on translation services, where I've lived in several other countries. And if I had gone, for example, to the Belgian City Hall to get my ID and expected them to speak English for me, I would have been laughed out of the building. So I don't think it makes much sense in an English dominant country to have a lack of an official language. The final reason for that would be a lack in English proficiency is the single greatest indicator of low socioeconomic status. So by giving people a way to not learn English, we're basically dooming them to servitude or second-class citizenship. Whereas if we provide resources, make it official, and put more effort into getting people who are immigrants to this country to speak English, not only will they integrate better, but they'll find themselves in better socioeconomic circumstances as well.
This episode of the MyLatinLife podcast is brought to you in part by Crema Social. Crema Social is like TikTok for international dating. It's an app you can download right now on your phone, and 3 out of 4 people on Crema are single women. The app was founded in Colombia, so unsurprisingly, there are a lot of Latinas on the app, by the way. So how does it work? Crema Social is a social meal experience where you invite a hot girl for a lunch date via video call and food delivery. New concept, so you'll have to try it out for yourself, but this is probably the best way to meet Latinas before you visit the country. So if you're in Latin America or planning to visit Latin America, download Crema Social now and start getting dates right away. There will be a link in the description to download, or just search Crema Social on your favorite app store. Have fun, guys. Do you have an idea for how many countries in the world don't have an official language?
No, I don't. I don't think it's a lot, though. I know Mexico doesn't, believe it or not, and England doesn't.
Yeah, so live grokking of it.
Live Googling. 180 have 180 out of 195 have an official.
Okay, interesting. So, does it say, pull it up if you can, the list of like the 15 that don't? And then, of course, some countries have multiple languages. And I'm not sure how much you've looked into this. I have nerded out about this quite a bit. It's like sometimes they're co-official, sometimes the languages have different statuses within the country. Where and then of course there's like regional languages where maybe they're recognized in a particular region but not necessarily across the whole country. So there's a whole like political game to it.
There is. And so, having lived in Belgium, one of the interesting things is they do have three official languages. And uh, Canada has two. And so, Canada's a lesser example of this, but everything has to be printed in French also by law, right?
Hmm.
In Belgium, it's the same, except for everything has to be printed by law in German, Dutch, and French. So it adds a lot of extra paperwork to everything on top of that. But as far as countries that don't, real quick, Australia, Eritrea, Luxembourg, Sweden, the UK, and the United States. So it's less than 15.
Okay, interesting. And I think, like, when I was getting into language learning, I was thinking about this where I was thinking, if I learn French, if I learn Spanish, how many countries does this unlock? And one measurement of that is like, how many countries is this an official language, right? And so you can look it up and see that the French language is actually very well represented. It's an official language in 26 countries, according to Wikipedia. And same kind of thing with Spanish, and Portuguese is like 10, 11 countries. And so you can sort of think of these things in sort of regions or language blocks. And as you unlock a language, you're unlocking like 30 countries.
Yeah, I like the idea of thinking of it as countries, and I also like the idea of thinking of it as people. So there's
Mhm.
500 million Spanish speakers. So when you learn Spanish, you have access to meet, speak to, and find opportunity with 500 million new people. Uh,
Mhm.
Especially because who knows, you may never find yourself in Argentina, but you may meet an Argentine in the US or in Canada or in Germany or somewhere else. And being able to speak to those anybody anywhere is a very, very convenient. I was reminded of that during our last Europe trip. I really was surprised by how few places I could find reliable English in Germany. A lot of German had to be used this trip.
Mm. Nice. Where are you back home now?
I am. Yeah, I am.
You're in the States, right?
Correct. California.
You're in California. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's decent ways to Germany.
It's a long way, but I had two friends getting married. We had two weddings 1 week apart. So it was totally worth it. My wife, my poor wife, she speaks some French and her Spanish is okay, but no German and definitely not enough French to attend a wedding for 11 hours. So I think she met 200 people in the 14 days we were there, and 30 of them spoke English.
That's how it is. Cool. And to keep on this idea of the official languages thing, have you sort of uh, made some interesting discoveries as you've sort of looked into this and tried to connect the dots?
Yes. One of the really interesting things that I realized was how long this fight's been going on for. So, in 1919 through 1924, Teddy Roosevelt was fighting for the same thing under the fears that exactly what we're dealing with today is what we would be dealing with if we didn't do it, where people stop trying to integrate. They start flying foreign flags over the U.S. flag. They I don't know. You just no longer see yourself as an American, and that was one of his biggest concerns, and it's definitely happened. And one of the interesting things I noticed too, because the conversation that comes up often is in the U.S. there are X amount of languages spoken, so why should we force English on everybody? And my response to that is they can speak whatever language they want. I'm a language teacher. I wouldn't try to shut down languages. I'm just saying official documents should be in English. But in Belgium, for example, there is a quasi-civil war going on 24/7 because they don't speak the same language. The Dutch don't like the French don't like the Dutch. At first, it was a power thing because the South had more money and they were paying for the North, and North wasn't doing anything. Now the North has more money and they're paying for the South, and the South's not doing anything. And yeah, it's just a whole cluster. And so they're always like, oh, we shouldn't be a single country. But Belgium is 1/10 the size of Arizona. So how big is your country going to end up if you keep carving it up? And two, the deadlock that ends up arriving in their government from all of this is caused by this language barrier where they can't even speak to each other. So when I was living in Belgium, and this was 2015, so this problem's going on for at least 10 years, there was no, you know how in the US every once in a while they'll be like, oh, the federal government's shutting down, and then like it's open in 3 days or something because people aren't getting paid. 300 days the government in Belgium was shut down because they couldn't come to an agreement on anything. So that can having multiple languages can have drastic consequences. I mean, even looking at Quebec, Quebec's the only reason that Trump has any negotiating power with Canada, because they're like, well, F the rest of Canada, we'll want this deal. And the way I've seen it work, because like you said, you look at all these things and you make discoveries. In Switzerland, it works really well. But part of the reason it works really well in Switzerland is because the languages are almost geographically locked behind lakes and rivers and mountains. So in one mountain area, they speak German, and then you're cut off from another area, and in this other part, they speak Italian, and you're cut off from another area, and they speak French in this other area. It's only in the center where they speak all of them mixed together. So the region lock helps a lot. Singapore was a really interesting discovery because English is one of their official languages because they want to have English to do business with. So it has
and
some
the Malay heritage was it was a British colony.
Yep. So they have the heritage. They want to have access to the language to do business, and then they always have their secondary language, which, from my understanding, though I haven't been, they do try to hit bilingualism as much as possible.
Yeah, and didn't New Mexico like make Spanish an official language in the state of New Mexico or something?
I don't know.
Have you heard that?
No.
Am I just crazy?
Yeah.
I feel like some of the southern states have, to varying degrees, made a push to say, why don't we get Spanish recognized down here?
For sure, they've pushed. One of the things that's interesting is you need 38 states, I believe. You can fact check me, but 38 states to add an amendment to the Constitution, and there are already that many states that have English as the official language. So we could make a push to do it constitutionally. Right now, it's just an executive order, and that's kind of why I wanted to talk about it, because it's not really official right now. It doesn't really mean anything. It could be undone with a pen in 2 years. It's not enough time to make any changes, and I'm just really tired of funneling all of our money into translation services and public defenders for people who killed families of 3 in Florida when they shouldn't have been driving.
Hey guys, quick break from the episode to tell you about BitRefill. BitRefill allows you to shop online and in person without banks, converting your crypto directly into merchant balance. We're talking gift cards to Nike, Amazon, Apple, Airbnb, Hotels.com, and many more, all paid for with crypto. BitRefill offers more than 10,000 gift card options in 180 countries all across Latin America, including Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, Argentina, El Salvador, and many more. You can also apply the code MyLatinLife at checkout to get 10% back on your first purchase. Go to bitrefill.com for more information. Yeah, no, I totally see it. I think, making English an official language is definitely a no-brainer. I think it's just interesting how look up. We need a guy. What's the guy on Joe Rogan?
Yeah, we need a guy. Jamie.
Jamie, look it up. New Mexico Spanish official language. Does not have an official. Okay, Spanish holds a special legally protected status, with many state laws and some legal notices requiring publication in both English and Spanish, reflecting a long history of bilingualism.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that's not even true in California.
Yeah, so I think we'll see more of this. Like, I think the English thing, we'll probably definitely see as a mix of nationalism and just practicality. And I feel like that's a pretty easy executive order or something. And then the Spanish one, I think long term, over the next 50, 100 years, you might see something like that where a lot of the border states might push to have the Spanish language have special status because maybe they say, oh, like, how come, whatever, we need money for the translations or something. So, they'll justify it somehow. So I could definitely see that happening too.
That only worries me because if we take it all the way back to the Roman Empire, the only thing that kept them together was they enforced their language. As soon as they stopped enforcing their language, the culture fell apart because when you don't speak the same language, you don't conceptualize things the same way. I'm working on a YouTube video for this right now, and it's a really interesting thought. Have you seen he's jungle adjacent, Sim Van Daele?
Rings a bell.
Okay, he's Belgian. I actually got to meet him when we were up in Germany this last time, and he does a lot of neuropsychobiology writing. So how does the way you think affect the way you speak, affect the way you act and are? And one of the things that we've been talking about, and we're actually working on kind of a long form article for this, and it's how the words you use basically create the world around you. So, for example, we'll take German, and then I'll give you a more controversial example. But German is a language, and at first when you're learning German, it sucks because there are a billion rules. But there aren't any exceptions to the rules. The rule's the rule. And if you look at a German society, the rule's a rule. There aren't any exceptions. You don't do the thing that's against the rule. The way their brains organize around their language informs their society. Whereas, for example, in most African languages, there's no word for maintenance.
I've heard this. Is that true?
It is.
Is that true?
Not only is that true, but they don't have a future tense. Everything is present or past tense. And so without a future tense, and I can link you the videos where this girl's explaining this, but without a future tense, it is impossible to conceive of the word maintenance because in order to maintain something, you have to know it is there in the future.
Isn't there a thing where Chinese doesn't have a future tense, or am I making that up too?
I don't know. I know Chinese. I don't think they have conjugations, if I recall correctly. Like the tenses are informed differently.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I don't know entirely.
I wasn't sure if that maintenance thing was like
no, it's real.
Something people say on Twitter.
No, I can show you. I can send you that video too. It's he's I think he's an African pastor, but he's basically explaining to all these people in South Africa why all their stuff's turning to dust, and it's because they don't have a word in Zulu for the word maintenance. And she's like, he's interviewing these two people, and she's like, well, we have a word for repair, and if you think about it, maintenance is the future, repair is the past. Right. They cannot, because of how their language is structured, think for the future, so maintenance cannot exist.
Pre-repair.
Yeah. So that's one of the other things that we're looking at a lot right now, especially Sim and I. One of the things, BowTied Passport, I'm sure.
Yeah.
One of the things he talks about is how Latinas have no concept of time.
Uh-huh.
And it's because how do you say now in Spanish?
Right, the ahora, ahorita.
Yeah, right.
This whole thing.
The whole thing. In este momento, what is really right now?
Right. It's totally situational.
And that's because, especially with Spanish, not only within Spain did it get changed, but every country was like, well, we've done that wrong for so long, that's just now the official way to do it.
So if I was inventing a language, I would just invent a language with like 10 words for maintenance and like 10 words for discipline and hard work and like, you know what I mean? Have like
So, well, interestingly enough, I think that that is how you would, in theory, I don't do this and maybe I should, but in theory, how you would craft the best affirmations would be, what language do you want to build your world? And you tell yourself that every day when you wake up, and it builds your world.
right. Some some languages work better for affirmations than others.
Yeah, if you expect to have a future, don't use Zulu.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Um, and kind of coming back to the Romance languages and the major languages. So I guess you're kind of doing two things, right? You're helping gringos who want to go to Latin America and go abroad, and then you're also helping people that want to learn English and kind of improve their situation. It's like two very different markets. How do you do both at once?
Well, interestingly enough, right now I'm working with two people. One is a man who married a Mexican woman and wants to speak Spanish with her family because her family didn't speak English. The other one is his wife, who moved to the US and wants to speak better English so she can get a better job. So it's, I have taught English to a lot of people who did not share a language with me. Being able to teach English to someone who speaks a language I speak is so much easier. So it sounds counterintuitive, but after a certain point, you can kind of flip the switch. So I can go English, Spanish, English, Spanish, English, Spanish. And having her to teach English to actually makes me better at teaching Spanish because I have to think about it both ways. And vice versa. Like, I have to really deconstruct English in order to teach Spanish correctly, and that helps me teach English better.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. I know we were going to talk about the evolving definition of fluency. And I think we kind of debated about this last time on the pod, and you've had some kind of new ideas about maybe what fluency means. Because I think it's important to have the outcome in mind when someone learns a language. I think it's very easy to be like, yeah, I'll just like get fluent. And it's like when you get on the journey, you realize that's kind of like a evolving idea of fluency.
Yeah.
But yeah, what have you kind of seen so far?
Well, I would start first with, I call my program 3 months to conversational because that's the target. From my perspective, once you can hold a conversation, you can do basically anything. The sky's the limit. Basically, after that point, it's on you to hold conversations and get better. But as far as fluency goes, I think it's the ability to ask questions that confuse native speakers. And the reason that I say that is because I was watching this video. It was really, really funny. And maybe I'll send it to you too. But it's this guy, clearly Mexican, clearly Spanish speaking, first language Spanish speaker. And his girlfriend says, "Hey, what do you call this?" And she holds up a cranberry. Do you know how to say cranberry in Spanish?
I do, yeah, arandano.
Yeah, rojo, technically, specifically, arandano rojo. And he said, "Berry de cran." And I use that video at the beginning of every Spanish class to show people you can be fluent in a language without knowing every single word. So it's a good starting point. And then I think we discussed last time, you said if you can understand everything that's coming in, you would consider that fluent. And I said you need a speech aspect as well. And
I stand by that.
I stand by mine too, because one of the things I've noticed, one of the things I've noticed is that if you can only understand, eventually you start to give up. Where it's like, it's nice that I can, I cannot describe to you. Maybe you didn't grow up in the US, I don't think, but in the US, one of the most common phrases is, I can understand everything, but I can't speak it.
Uh-huh.
And I don't think any of those people consider themselves fluent, and I wouldn't either. But also, having to say that is extremely frustrating. And so the more frustrated you get, and it goes to even just the cortisol spikes.
Yeah, but some people say it, and sorry to interrupt the cortisol argument, but there's some people will say, yeah, I understand it, but don't speak it. And then there's people like that might be someone saying like, yeah, I basically fucking don't know it. But someone could mean that and like truly understand everything. Um, so I don't know what you were
But if you
looking
can
at.
understand everything and you can't respond, then what's the utility? I guess would be my contention. When are you going to use
You just
it?
respond in English, but like I see this like all the time, like people that they understand Spanish fluently, but they just prefer to respond in English in like a group setting. And so they know what the people are saying and they're responding, but they're just responding in English. And then the people who speak Spanish, they also understand English, so they also know they understand what's being said too.
Yeah, yeah, and I saw that a lot in exchange contexts, but I think you said it properly in that case where they understand fluently, but they can't speak fluently.
Yeah, or just choose not to, or maybe they speak like 70%, so they're kind of embarrassed or whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
that 70%, getting over that, getting past the embarrassment, that's when I believe that you hit fluency. Once you're over
and
that
yeah,
embarrassment,
and
and I
it's an identity thing too. But like you'll see this in different contexts. But like when you start having like mixed groups where it's like a Spanish guy and a Brazilian guy, and then you're like speaking mostly Spanish and then a little Brazilian, and then he's responding in Brazilian and we're responding in Spanish, and we understand each other.
yeah, yeah, I've been in those situations, and I still wouldn't consider myself fluent in Portuguese, for example. The other thing now, especially coming from a teaching perspective, I wouldn't teach a language I'm not fluent in. And so, even though I can understand Portuguese fluidly, I can understand German fluently, I don't feel that I'm fluent enough to teach it.
Yeah. I agree with what you're saying though, that like it's not true fluency if you can't speak. I think I'm just trying to give people a little more hope and like lower the bar and also just think of things in a different way. Because I used to live in Montreal, and I came from Toronto where there's no English spoke or sorry, there's no French being spoken at all. So I had no understanding of French. And then when I go to Montreal, I had buddies that understood everything that was being said, but they just choose to respond in English because they identified as like Anglophone Quebecois. And so they just prefer to respond in English, but they literally understand everything in Montreal French because they grew up there. So it's very clear that that person has, I don't know what you want to call it, but they have a deep understanding of French in a way that I didn't as a Canadian from a different region. You know, so I don't know what you want to call that, but I would call that fluency.
I liked how you called it fluent comprehension,
Mm-hmm.
uh, because I think in this is more now from experience with students, that is a step along the way to fluency. So most of my students hit that probably like week 6 or week 8, where they can just hear and understand what's happening, and but they still can't respond, and that feels like a handicap. And so I agree that we should definitely restructure how people see it, and that's why I say conversational should be the goal for most people,
Mm-hmm.
because my thing comes back to how bad are you or how good are you at English? How many mistakes do you make in English every day? So why do you
On
care
this
about being
podcast, never.
perfect?
This, um, no, but I think it's also not black and white where it's like it's not realistic that someone's going to have full listening comprehension and they're just not going to speak anything, like they're a mute. I mean, it's obviously not going to be that extreme, but what I notice is it's possible to be really out of whack where you have like 100% listening comprehension, but your speaking is, it's like mid because maybe you
Yeah,
just don't speak as much, or you just don't have it like snappy yet, but you can, you know what I mean.
yeah, absolutely. I know that.
Like it's like Italian, I can understand quite a lot of it, depending on who's speaking. And then but if I'm speaking it, I'm like posso andare, it's like, so it's like it's very out of whack, my like listening comprehension versus my speaking capability. and
Yeah.
and yeah.
So I would say the link between those two things would be that fluency. Once you connect those two things, because I've also seen it. I think we mentioned this. You've seen it in the inverse where, wow, that person speaks really well, but if you talk to them, they can't understand anything.
Exactly. And that's the worst place to be in.
Yeah.
That's the worst place to be in. That's what I want people to avoid is they're like, I can say full sentences with a really good accent and I have no idea what the F people are saying.
Yeah.
And that's
Then
common.
I
That
do,
happened to me.
I think that is the easiest problem to solve though. Um, because there's so much input that you can get without having to talk that you can train your ear passively. So, for example, two of my students, one, I don't know if you know Bowtied Beast, he's a bodybuilder. He just watched the entire Dragon Ball Z series in Spanish while doing cardio. And if you do that and you know the story because you've seen it in English already, it's going to be hard to not understand Spanish by the end of the 200th episode.
Nice. Yeah, that'll definitely help.
Yeah, given it's not the only thing he's doing, obviously I have
Uh-huh.
a lot of structure built into this stuff, but that's what he does during cardio. And I have, the, I would say, toilet time and travel time are the two most underutilized times for language stuff.
Dude, I'm in and there. I'm in and out of there. I'm not learning a language on the toilet.
It's
But
a
no, I
2 minute
think
and 30-second Duolingo
yeah,
lesson.
for me, it's going for walks and
Yep.
going to the gym, um, and just pop in a podcast. And I'll listen to French, Portuguese, Spanish, maybe even Italian, all in the same day. Just to kind of keep everything going.
Yeah, that's why I'm a big fan of music. I love my playlist. It keeps my brain fresh, is what I would say. I've had an easier time finding Spanish music in any genre that I want than anything else, though. But I know it all exists out there.
Okay, so I guess your philosophy is pretty heavy on emphasis on speaking and getting the listening reps in, which obviously is a huge thing. If you want to get true fluency, you need like hundreds, if not certainly thousands, 10,000 hours of spoken practice. So, what's kind of your strategy for that? Are you doing sort of italki Zoom lessons type of thing? The baselang language blend are Spanish ones that are friends of the podcast. So are you doing mostly Zoom stuff, or are you trying to tell people to go in person somewhere they can? Lessons can get expensive a little bit. It's not too bad, but let's just say, you know, it can add up to thousands of dollars if you go hard. So like, what's kind of your strategies there for getting the reps?
For getting reps, it's definitely one of the reasons that I find it difficult to theorize how I would teach in a public setting is that every one of my students gets a personal document of resources. So at the beginning of every class, the student will fill out a questionnaire, and then I'll find stuff according to their interests in Spanish or in French or in English. And
Mm-hmm.
then we use that material. So, for example, one of my students right now, he's really into guns. There's a Spanish YouTube channel called La Maria, and we
I
just
don't know.
watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, it's a sick
All
channel.
right. All right.
I'm a
Okay.
big fan. I'm a big fan of that channel, and so yeah, we watch videos there. And then with Olive, we do mock negotiations. That's a great way to practice your speech is to do mock negotiations. And he has his girlfriend who speaks Spanish. They can do them together. So having a partner is very helpful. One of the things I find is most of the people I've worked with who are learning Spanish have at least one person in their life with whom they can speak, um, because that's probably why they're learning it in the first place.
Oh my God, dude, these videos look hilarious. I've never seen this type of thing.
It's awesome.
I'm gonna watch this with my family.
Yeah, I loved it. So watch videos with that guy on that. With Beast, we do psychology videos. Um, which is always interesting. And so, what I would say is, and I encourage people always do this, if you're interested in something in English, there's a very high likelihood it's being spoken about in the language you're trying to learn,
Hmm.
especially if it's Spanish.
Okay, but yeah, back to how to get the reps of the spoken. So we've established that we need to get the spoken practice, and how do you get it? Like, how do you like line up I guess like ChatGPT is starting to get good, and you can like speak to the voice recorder thing, but you probably need to line up some humans. So what do you kind of do there?
Farmers markets are a really good one. I'm
Okay.
You can practice live negotiation. Most of the time, the people at the farmers markets will be trying to speak English. So if you speak Spanish to them, they may be caught off guard, or French if you catch somebody who speaks French. I remember in Arcadia, Scottsdale, there was French speakers randomly, and I was able to speak French to them, caught them completely off guard, and that led to a long conversation. A lot of times, if you want a longer conversation, catching people off guard when they're not expecting it is very helpful, because then they're immediately friendly to you. Like, oh, you speak the language I speak. Nice to meet you. At least if
Okay.
you're not in the country where it's the official language, right? So if I'm in California and I see someone speaking German, and I speak German to them, they're going to be more excited than if I see somebody in Germany and they're speaking German and I try to speak German to them.
Yeah, that makes sense. I find those day-to-day interactions, like if you're on the ground in a country, it doesn't add up to much. Like, the groceries, it's like, "Quieres saco,"
Yeah,
whatever. And it's
groceries are
like,
never.
it's like tarjeta, sí, tarjeta. Like it doesn't really add up to as much as you think. You go to the restaurant, vaso de agua. If you're lucky, you just go
Yeah,
agua, dos agua.
that's
Like
why
you
farmers
really
market.
the farmer's market. It's like, how many? What is this? Pepino. Okay, how many to dose? Yeah, you'll get a bit of practice, but I feel like it's that can't be the backbone of the strategy, right?
No, that's
So
like a once a week thing.
yeah,
Backbone is we just do. I have 3 hours of class every week, and we talk for the majority of it. Um, Other than that, and this is going to sound really, I don't know, maybe it'll sound dumb, maybe it won't. It works. I make people talk to themselves. Reading out
hmm,
loud is really, really helpful for becoming good at speech, because one of the things people don't realize is how many muscles are in your face. And so if you're not
yes,
used to making a shape with your mouth, you cannot make the shape with your mouth. And so reading out loud, start with one
yeah.
sentence, then two, then three, then a page, then two
And
pages.
and you're correcting them, or someone's correcting them.
Correct. Yeah. And not necessarily like I tell them to read every day out loud, whether they do it or not. But in class, they also read out loud. Yeah.
Yeah, I really recommend this to people, especially if you have a spouse or that, like a girlfriend or whatever that can correct you real time. Or if you don't have a spouse, pay a language teacher. I think in a class format, it might be actually one of the best uses of time
Yeah.
is if you just read a book or read the newspaper and then the teacher just corrects your pronunciation. Because they'll be correcting you, every other sentence, even when you get reasonably good. Like someone can easily still correct. Like if I read in Spanish, my girlfriend can correct things about my pronunciation, even this many years later. So I really recommend that.
Yeah, and if you don't have a spouse or a partner or a friend who can do that for you, or you don't want to pay a teacher, I actually have people. I call it follow along, read along, and so basically Audible with a book, and then you read the book, then you play the author reading or the orator reading the book, compare notes. And what I
Mm,
try to have people do, especially if they find an orator they really like, is have them repeat after the orator every sentence. Like say what he said and try and match it. I'm a firm believer in mimicry. I think if you
hmm.
mimic people, you'll
Yeah.
find yourself in a lot better position linguistically, because I think I sent out a tweet about this yesterday, but the the uhs that we have in English, they exist in every language. So if you mimic people when they do the like fin, bref, you sound more native,
Yeah.
and it buys you time.
So how do you do that? You have the script and you're watching a video.
Yeah. You have the transcript. Actually, that's how we do everything. I do transcripts for all the videos. I transcribe every video we watch. It's gotten a
So
little bit better with
is
YouTube's
this like a
auto translate.
specific channel or how does it work?
Oh, I just do it by myself. It's
Okay,
any
so
channel.
you
So
find
so
YouTube videos and then you can put it through like a transcript engine that'll like spit out a transcript for you.
that
Use
would
one of
probably be
those.
a good idea, but I usually just type it myself.
No, can't
Well,
type out a
so YouTube has like a transcript, and you can
right,
so you copy paste it, and then
like
I
the
edit it.
CC, the
Yeah,
closed caption thing.
Yeah, their auto translations have gotten a lot better.
Yeah, but it doesn't like give it to you in a separate
Nope,
text.
gotta
Okay,
edit
you
it all
can. There are
down.
tools where you can. It's like YouTube, free YouTube transcriber.
1 second.
Um,
I need to make sure that I do that.
yeah, because yeah, it'd be good to like have it like see it kind of separate, and then watch the guy do his speech, and then say it out loud after.
Yeah, and we have different levels to it too. Like I think I'm sure you're familiar with like the subtitles levels, where you go English, Spanish, Spanish, English, Spanish, Spanish, no subtitles.
I have thoughts on that as well,
Yeah,
which is that English subtitles is a total waste of time,
I agree
and
completely.
you should just go straight into only target language subtitles. So if you're watching a Spanish novella, you want only Spanish subtitles. You do not want. Some people say, "Oh, I want the English and the Spanish subtitles to like compare."
No,
I don't think that's a good idea. I think just go straight to the Spanish.
yeah, I agree. Go straight to the Spanish. We never do English subtitles. Um, but we do so with this. We do levels. So the first probably 3 weeks to a month, we'll read the transcript first, then we'll watch the video. That way they know what's happening in the video. The second month, we will watch the video. They will tell me what they think happened. Then we will go through the transcript and find out what actually happened. And then the final one, they translate the transcript for me, um, in like live, basically.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think yeah, skipped English subtitles. I think this transcript thing is good. Someone would have, yeah, I've never like really done that, but I can see that working. I'm trying to find ways where I want to like practice the language without having to look at the screen, but also like not in. It's like I want it to be like a paid lesson online, but I just don't look at the screen. I'm just going to have them on audio only and do like a audio only WhatsApp call, so I don't have to look at the screen. And yeah.
So I think that that's a possibility for the latter stages. Like if you can already hold a semi decent conversation, if you can understand a decent amount, that's possible. But I use visual aids for a lot of stuff, especially because I talk a lot about the building blocks of words and how you can use those building blocks to just know other words.
Mhm. I think yeah, with the Romance languages, it's so easy because we get so much of a head start.
Yeah.
Where even when you start at zero, you already kind of know like 30% of the vocabulary, and the script is the same. But I think with Arabic or something like that, it definitely requires a bit of a different approach. Have
Yeah.
you have you like tackled any of that, like anything with a different script, like Arabic or Chinese or Russian?
So I've learned Cyrillic, and I learned Cyrillic so that I could kind of understand how to better teach an alphabet.
Hmm.
But it is a whole different game.
Yeah,
It's
I did
hard.
a good amount of Cyrillic for Russian, like on Duolingo. At
I
some point, I
think,
paid for the pro and did the Duolingo in Russian for like quite a while. Like I did it quite far, got pretty far with it, and so I started to feel like pretty comfortable in Cyrillic. So that one's like obviously way closer
right,
than Arabic
than
or Chinese,
Arabic.
but yeah, like the Cyrillic and Greek, it's like
Yeah, yeah. I was learning Cyrillic for the to learn how to teach an alphabet, because one of the things I think that we mess up with in the US is we don't really focus on the alphabet when teaching a second language. And that is probably where a lot of the pronunciation issues come from. And by probably, I mean that's where a lot of the pronunciation issues come from. People don't really understand the alphabet that well.
Yeah, I wonder what I would do if and when I start learning Arabic, because I would have to do a different approach, where I couldn't just like listen my way to fluency. It would have to basically start with lessons, like one-on-one lessons, I think, as well as reading. And I actually did a good bit of it on Duolingo, but I didn't really like crack the alphabet, but I got like a decent feel for it. But um, yeah,
Yeah, I think a private tutor for Arabic would probably be necessary, at least for me, for the first month until I got the alphabet down. Then I like to read out loud, and so I'd probably just do that. One of the things that I tell people, especially with new kids, like babies, is they don't know what you're saying anyway. They're not going to judge you if you mess up your speech. Read to them out loud. They just want to be around you.
hmm
So a lot of people are afraid to mess up in front of nobody, and I don't quite understand that hang up because I'm a very much extrovert, and so I'll just walk up to random people and start talking to them. But I've been trying to find ways to deal with it, and one of the better ways I found to deal with it is to have an audience that you know won't judge you. And Baby is pretty good for that.
yeah. I think Benny Lewis used to say, his goal was to make 5 mistakes a day,
Yeah.
something like that. Like that was literally, he's like, my language goal today is to make 5 mistakes, because that's how you're using it.
Yeah, I had a student come in, and we do a deload week at week 9 because I firmly believe in the efficacy of deload weeks. Um, so he told me he felt during his deload week that there was a switch where he suddenly could understand better. And now, because he understands better, he's afraid to speak because he can hear how bad he sounds. And I, I just had to break through to him like, hey, look, you've been talking to these people in Spanish now for 8 weeks. If you randomly stop now because you're sensitive, they're going to think you're weird. So just finish the course out and keep going strong with talking to them. And that got through to him pretty quick. I think it's kind of like, well, obviously they already don't care if you were worse. You're better than you've ever been. So keep going.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think part of it is also, I think it's hard for Americans when they've been in such a monolingual environment, for it to feel normal speaking multiple languages. Um, I think, people would benefit from kind of seeing it in real life too, so it doesn't become this theoretical thing.
Yes, the one of the cool parts is the first time somebody comes back to class and like, I just had my first conversation, and that's when it moves from the theoretic to the practic, and they're like, oh, this is it now, and it does the job that I have to do, which is reaffirm their desire to keep learning. It can be hard as a working professional. You're like, what am I really doing this for? I'm spending all this money, spending all this time, and then it happens, and you're like, oh, that's right, it's all worth it.
I think this is one of the like most high ROI activities that someone can do, where even just like 100 hours of study like turns you into Superman.
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. And you never know what could happen. I don't like to tell too many of my stories because I'm like, I don't know if that'll happen for you, but the things that I've gotten to do are absolutely insane just because I could speak Spanish or French in the right moment. And you don't know when the right moment is until it's there. So best to be prepared.
For sure. Cool. Well, yeah. I think we got to get to wrapping up here. What kind of final message do you want to share with the audience? Where can they find you? What are you working on now? What are you excited about for the second half of 2025?
My message to everybody would be, irrespective of what your definition of fluency is, if you feel confident in your ability to speak and understand, then that's fluent and that's good. And that's where you need to be, because at the end of the day, no matter how good you think you are at your native language, you are likely making tens, if not hundreds, of mistakes weekly. And that has never held you back from speaking your native language, so it should never hold you back from speaking your next language. As far as what I'm excited about, a baby on the way in December.
Ooh,
So very
congrats.
excited. Thank you. Um, Working on a lot of more family homeschooled focused stuff because we are intending to homeschool. And um, I think that a lot of the resources out there are already good, but I think that I can do better. You can find me at www.secondlanguagestrategies.com. or Odin's Second Language Strategies on YouTube, have an exciting, if not controversial, YouTube video coming up on how languages affect how we conceive of the world, including the importance of a future tense. Other than that, you find me BowTiedOdin on X or Twitter, and that's probably the best place to reach me if you want to chat. But thank you again for having me on. This was awesome. It's always good to talk to you.
For sure. As we get to wrapping up, there's a link in the description for Mr. BowTiedOdin's channel, and his links are in the description. Another thing I wanted to mention to the audience, we recently put out a Learn Spanish book at MyLatinLife. It's an Amazon bestseller. It's called Learn Spanish for Adult Beginners 3-in-1 Workbook. There's also a link in the description for the book if you want to support us and pick up a best-selling book on learning Spanish. You can go do that. So yeah, links in the description, guys. This has been another episode of the MyLatinLife podcast. Please subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening to this on your favorite podcast player. We put out 2 episodes a week with amazing guests like BowTiedOdin, and you won't want to miss an episode. Ciao for now.